If everyone would take their seats, we'll get this work session, special meeting called to order. Thank you. At this time, would everyone stand? We'll have a word of silence. Thank you. At this time, would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Have a seat. I want to welcome each of you to this special call City Council work session here for on the 23rd of July. So, at this time, Madam Clerk, we have roll call.
Mrs. Wilkins-Grant?
Here.
Mr. Chris?
Here.
Mrs. Hambrick?
Present.
Mr. Hampton?
Here.
Mr. Minke?
Present.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell?
Here.
Mrs. Tingle-Sains?
Here.
Mr. Stafford?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, you have reviewed the minutes from July 14th. At this time, I will entertain a motion for approval of those minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Ms. Brent. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Ms. Hambrick. Are there further questions and or comments? All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of you attending. Our consultant is here to give you a abbreviated presentation. It's a little bit different than the last stakeholder meeting we had at the courthouse. So you'll be hearing that. And in response to our council request, I'm asking, I assigned some staff to partner with agencies to identify some private development costs and to give a project. And I also asked Chase Avizito, who's here with us from GMWSS, to also present a presentation for you for this information as to utilities, infrastructure, investments, and a significant piece on any project. So questions are welcome at any time. So we would ask that if you go to ask a question, please speak up so this will pick up. There's a couple of mics out there that we will be able to hopefully be able to let you have. Like I said, before we get started, again, thank you for being here. I hope this will be informational for you to understand the process of what goes on when we talk about the development impact fee. And a lot of work has gone into this, a lot of preparation for you all to have this. And again, this will be an opportunity to have some discussion on this and hopefully see where we want to go from here. With that said, I'm going to invite Ben Griffin to the podium, and he's with Tesler Bice Consulting Incorporated. Thank you, Ben, for being with us.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, so as the Mayor said, this is going to be an abbreviated version of the presentation from June. I'll point out the differences since then. That way we can really focus on those changes and we don't have to go fully through this. I believe it's a fourth time now. For the council members, I'll point out there are a couple changes since you last saw it in April. They're reductions, essentially, but I'll go ahead and point those out. But we'll sort of skim through most of this because you've already heard it. But just a reminder, impact fees are one-time payments for growth-related infrastructure, generally collected at the time of the building permit. So this is future development share of capital costs related to that growth generated by future development. Can't use for operations, maintenance, repair, rehab, replacement. It needs to be new capacity or existing capacity that we're buying into. Level of service is very important, so we can't charge future development for a higher level of service than existing development receives. So we always want to make sure that we're really focusing on what is the level of service again, so we're not overcharging future development. You'll hear me talk about different cost methodologies, but essentially they look at points in time. So if we look to the past, that's cost recovery. We're buying into excess capacity that exists today. Incremental is the present day. So we're just going to maintain a level of service. So what is today's level of service? What is today's cost? And we carry that forward. Plan-based looks to the future and says, hey, we want to build this specific project or projects. So what is existing development share? What is future development share? Credits, if the development community builds something that is in the impact fee study, they'll get a credit against the impact fee related to what they've put in the ground. The debt service or dedicated revenues credits, that's essentially something that's baked into the impact fee study. So if there's debt service or some sort of dedicated revenue, we want to make sure that we're essentially reducing the impact fees, so future development is charged once through the impact fee and once through that future debt service or that future dedicated revenue. So we started this process in January of 2024. We had our first public presentation in September. We had our second presentation in April. In June, we had a stakeholder outreach. And so today we're coming back based on the feedback from that previous stakeholder meeting, and we made some adjustments. Development projections have not changed. The demand factors on residential and non-residential have not changed. Nothing has changed related to fire since April. Municipal facilities, there's one small change. So in April, we did not include that $1.8 million tax credit. That was included in the June presentation, but just for council's sake, we do have that $1.8 million tax credit, which essentially reduces the impact fee because we're netting out that $1.8 million. For police, nothing has changed since June, but in April we did have a vehicles component. It was only a few vehicles that the impact fees would generate funding for, so it wasn't much of a change to the fee, but we did remove that component. All right, so water. This is our big change. We are removing all components related to water. After discussions with staff, we feel like it's better to revisit the water component at a future update. Once we have a better idea of some of the costs related to the water system improvements and essentially what benefit that will have to future development, because we know there is going to be some benefit to existing development. So really trying to get a better idea of what is the growth share on that one. So we figured for the time being we would just remove the water components. So those you'll notice in the fee schedules there's a zero next to water now. For wastewater, only a small change. We've removed the equipment component. Again, this is a small component. It's not going to change the fee very much. But in doing that, all that's left is the wastewater treatment plant expansion, which means that our service area changes from the utility service area to just the wastewater treatment plant 1 collection area. So if development is in the collection 2 or 3 area, they would not pay an impact fee related to wastewater. This would just be development within the treatment plant 1 collection area. Right, nothing changed with any of our projected flow, nothing changed with the costs of the treatment plant expansion. So this shows the revised fee schedule, again, noting that it's just for the treatment plant 1 collection area. So now we're looking at, a single family fee of about, just shy of $2,500. The non-residential ones, they vary between, per room, per acre, per square foot. But essentially this, we've removed the equipment component, so this has come down slightly. This shows the proposed fees with these changes. So on the left side, you see the non-utility components. So for residential, they vary by the size of the unit, maxing out at units that are 3,001 square feet or more. For non-residential, they're assessed per square foot or on lodging per room. On the right side, you see those proposed fees for the wastewater treatment plant 1 expansion. This shows a comparison on the residential side. So on the top, you see what we showed you in June. So on a 3-bedroom apartment in June, we were saying was about $4,600. With the revised fees, we're saying about $3,500. So a reduction of about $1,100. And single-family units, an 1,800 square foot unit in July, we were saying about $5,900. Today, we're saying about $4,600. So an increase of almost $1,300. And if you look at the bottom, you can see where those reductions are happening, and it's removing the water component and then removing the equipment component on wastewater. And then for non-residential, the same thing. The very top shows June. The middle shows the proposed fees today, and the bottom shows the difference. And so you can see, if you look at that bottom right-hand corner, it decreases of anywhere from $14,000 for a prototype 50,000 square foot industrial use to a reduction of almost $94,000 on a 75 room lodging development. So that is the final slide on the revisions. I don't know if we have any questions on the impact fees, or if we want to turn it over to Chase to do the development scenarios comparison. Turn over to Chase.
All right. Thank you, Chase.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ben's really good at talking through numbers with nothing up here, so I'm going to keep my notes handy. But I appreciate everybody being here tonight, and I appreciate the Council's attention to this very detailed, complex issue. I'm here tonight on these simulated projects at the Council's request, and what I'm trying to do is present some hypothetical project simulations, and I'm presenting it in 2 ways, or Ben and I will. And first, we're going to examine 3 hypothetical projects, different types of projects, and we're going to try to demonstrate, I will do my very best to show by current policies and current fee structures what public infrastructure, not entire development costs, but the public infrastructure associated with the development projects, what the developer is currently paying for. And then after we run through those, Ben is going to show you what he has calculated based on these hypothetical parameters, what the impact fee would be for these same 3 projects. And so a few notes to begin with as I look around at the room. I am not a developer. While I am in infrastructure and do a lot of projects, I do not claim to know all of the costs that are factored into any of these types of projects. I know a little bit about water and sewer parts. So I'm sure that there are things that people may say you got that wrong, and as we continue these discussions, I'm happy to update these if council needs to see these numbers to further your conversation and decision-making process. So these 3 simulated projects, I will say also that I have done my best to develop these numbers off 3 similar projects, similar type, similar size projects that have been completed recently in Georgetown. So these numbers are not exhaustive, but it's the best that I've come up with to further this conversation, and I appreciate the planning and zoning staff. They've helped me put these together just to show, again, what is the developer responsible for versus whether it is public infrastructure versus what the utility or the city would be responsible for. So we're looking at, let's see here, public infrastructure on the part of a private developer. So we'll go to the first example here, please. Thank you. So this is our hypothetical number 1, and this is a commercial project with the parameters. It is a B2 zoning designation. It's an 8-acre site. and about 66,000 square feet of building space, commercial building space. This is in the wastewater treatment plant 1 service area, so as Ben said, if this current draft of the development impact fee structure were to be implemented, you would have the component factored in for new capacity, the pro rata share of the new capacity from wastewater treatment plant 1. And I'm sorry these numbers are small. I tried to fit this on one screen. I know we had problems with that at the last one, but I'm going to walk through it, and hopefully we can see it, and I can distribute this as well. But we'll start with planning and zoning, what their fee structure is. The largest components, one is dealing with planning, and one is dealing with engineering. So for those project parameters, planning and zoning, I sat down, we came up with what this project would pay in planning and engineering fees to P&Z, $3,400. That's where we start. Then the project would come to Georgetown Municipal, and for all of our components, that's engineering, review, hydraulic analysis, privilege fees if applicable, pre-treatment fees if applicable, and connection fees. This project, with these parameters, we would be looking roughly $94,000 that we would be assessing to the developer for all of those items. That's according to our current policies, recommended by me, approved by the Board of Commissioners. So then you get into the construction cost, and I've used unit costs from a recently completed project similar in nature. And I've broken this out, the public infrastructure part, and that's consisting of roadway transportation improvements. That includes a signalized intersection, sidewalks, stormwater management. The total or the cost component of that public infrastructure was just under $2.9 million. The water infrastructure associated with this project, $368,000. That's water infrastructure installed and then dedicated to Georgetown Municipal for our ownership and operation. Sanitary sewer, same thing, installed by the developer for the project and then dedicated for ownership and operation by Georgetown Municipal. That's $262,500. So total infrastructure construction cost, $3.5 million, and a total cost of the public infrastructure, we're at $3.6 million invested for this project that's hypothetical with these parameters. It does not include anything for electrical inspection, building inspection, or any other, I will say, regulatory agencies that would have authority over this type of project. And I'll stop there and take any questions from the council or public. This is hypothetical number 1.
That's what they currently pay.
Yes, sir.
And then next you'll explain the difference.
Yes, sir.
with the impact fees.
Well, we're going to explain what the impact fee would be, and you can add it to that. It would be additional to the $3.6 million. Not seeing any more hands, so I'm going to go to hypothetical number 2. This is really not that hypothetical. This is a project in the Lanes Run Business Park. It is a 10-acre site, zoned industrial through the BP1 zoning designation. It's going to be a building size of 50,000 square feet. Lanes Run Business Park, the site is in the wastewater plant 2 service area, so you're going to see that the wastewater component of the current draft of the fee is not there. Is it's zero. There's nothing because this is a different service area and there's no impact fee for wastewater treatment plant 1 right now. So we start again with planning and zoning. Their fees for planning and engineering, $3,100, $3,120. I do believe because there is some public nature of this project that part of that was credited back. I'm not sure on the details of that, but if there were no public component of Lanes Run Business Park, then $3,120 would be what the planning and zoning fee would be for planning and engineering. You jump over to the right side, the Georgetown Municipal fees related to engineering review, hydraulic analysis, pre-treatment where applicable. This is in a privilege fee area, so there is a privilege fee cost. And then you would have water and sanitary sewer connection fees. And I actually should have left out the water because we do not provide water to Lanes Run Business Park. That is a mistake on my part. So you could take out $5,100 for that water connection there. But we're roughly $30,000 on Georgetown Municipal engineering, hydraulic analysis, privilege fees. Note the privilege fee is not a fee that is put into the Georgetown Municipal bank account. That goes back to the developer that put in the original infrastructure. So this one I had to calculate a little bit different when we move over back to the left to construction cost, because the $440,000, that is based on the entire Phase 2 cost and acreage, and then interpolated for just the 50-acre site. But the cost component related to 50 acres in Phase 2 of Lanes Run Business Park would be $440,000, bringing the total for that one site unit cost to $473,000 and some change there. Same disclaimer, doesn't include building inspection, electrical inspection, or any other fees for agencies that have some regulation authority over the public infrastructure part. I'll stop there for questions. Yes, sir.
So in this particular case, with it being Lanes Run, so all of the initial infrastructure, when lots are sold at Lanes Run, it's with infrastructure in place, and that's just the connection from existing infrastructure to their tap.
That is correct. This does not include the service line for sewer or anything on the site. This is the public infrastructure.
And so I'm trying to remember what the potential cost was of Lanes Run Business Park infrastructure.
45,000. Phase 2, I believe, was $6.9 million.
Yeah.
That's what the $440,000 is based off of. It's the total acreage of Phase 2. It's $6.9 million divided by the total acreage of Phase 2, and that's where you get $444,000 for this 50 acres.
So my point behind all that is this is a great example of public-private partnership that developed the business park, that invested in the future to be able to have this type of growth at a minimum cost for individual lots within the business park. So when you're looking at the actual cost of development, if you add those numbers into that, again, that's the investment in the community of all the parties. So that's why that number was so low in comparison to the first example.
Agree. I think you'll also see that the development impact fee is much lower because, as I already stated, it's not in the wastewater plant 1 service area.
Just for clarification, you said that GMWSS doesn't provide water, but Kentucky American does, so there'd still be a water cost, right?
That is correct. I just don't have that number. I mistakenly put our number in there, but there still would be a... Yes. Thank you, Mike. I'll see if I can work on that and see if I can get some numbers to update that. Any other questions?
Chase, just real quick to confirm, the 473, I see the infrastructure cost up there at $400,000. And if you divide the total cost by 50 acres, you're only talking about $9,500 per acre.
I'm sorry. Let me restate that. You take the $6.9 million, divide it by the total acreage of Phase 2, then multiply that by 50. That's where you'll get the $440,000.
Okay. But I guess I'm a little bit confused. So is this considered a 50-acre tract or not?
Yes.
I thought you said 10 acres.
I'm sorry.
10 acres.
50,000 square foot, 10 acres. I apologize. Too many numbers. I'm sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. I apologize there. Other questions, comments on example 2?
And Chase, just one more quick question.
Yes.
Like on the previous example, that you all showed, it was like $450,000 per acre. Did that include construction of a building, or it was
No,
something?
it did not.
That was just the.
This is
infrastructure.
strictly public infrastructure that will become public. Whether it's
That's a high cost per acre. I'm not saying it's not, it's real in some cases, but that is a very high cost per acre.
again,
Yeah, you've got an example, right?
I can think I can, from a planning level, get reasonably close on water and sewer infrastructure, on roadway, stormwater, sidewalks, intersections. I'm doing the best I can here.
No, you're doing great. So this one's 47,000 per acre compared to 450,000 per acre. Big difference. And probably what Kim's talking about is a lot of the infrastructure was in place due to the city, now the county, and the private partnership.
In the business park, you're not starting from a green field.
Right.
Other questions on hypothetical number 2?
But this doesn't include the land purchase.
No.
Like maybe in the business.
No, it does not.
Undeveloped area, you might have paid a little less for the land than in developed business park area.
I'm sorry.
But this doesn't include them.
Did the $6.9 million include the land purchase, or was that just for infrastructure? I didn't think it did. That does not include.
Which is the point, maybe they've got, the land prices in the different developed area versus an undeveloped area might be somewhat different.
Example 1 did not include property cost either. Any other questions?
Just to point out, Jackson, that $6.9 million was spent 4 years ago too. There's a lot of cost increase.
There's no factors in my numbers for time value of money.
Another factor that's with increase today's cost.
Chase,
Yes,
could
ma'am.
you expand a little bit on the privilege fee? Because I don't think a lot of people probably know that impacts the fees overall, even though it seems quite small in comparison.
That could be a whole separate presentation. I'll do my best to give you a 1-minute overview. If we go into, for example, I'm going to use a sewer example for an unsewered area, and we have somebody that wants to do a project. They could install infrastructure, as they have to for Georgetown Municipal, the infrastructure on site, any infrastructure that requires an extension to their site, and then any infrastructure upgrades that benefit their site on the existing system. So if we have in a sewer shed, we've got this first party that wants to do a project, but we know there's 10 more right behind it, we don't want 10 lines coming to our system or 10 pump stations. We want one pump station and sewer main sized appropriately for the entire sewer shed. So that first project owner, developer, will be required to fund that project, and then it is and put in those construction, engineering, total project cost numbers will be put into what we call a privilege fee that is recorded. Then as developers number 2 through 10 that come in behind developer number 1 will pay back a pro rata share based on their beneficial usage, always based on acreage, to the original owner or every owner before them. We do it a couple of different ways based on the project, but it is a way to share infrastructure cost such that we can better develop our system in a more manageable way. And that's short notice. That's the best application. If there's anybody that wants to offer a different feeling on that, did I? Okay. We've used privilege fees. We have 17 privilege fee areas. I believe they've been successful. I know that nobody wants to hit up that initial fee, but I feel like it is a transparent and an appropriate way that we can share infrastructure costs for sewer based on, again, your pro rata, your fair share. So for the business park, there is a privilege fee downstream. It was from a private developer that put that infrastructure in. So for any development within the business park, they have paid into that privilege fee, and how it works. They write a check to Georgetown Municipal. It's simply a pass-through. Then it goes back to the original developer. We are essentially the bank.
So that will help him actually recoup what he's invested.
That is correct. And I'll say on privilege fees, since it was brought up at our previous meeting, well, actually, I don't know if it was brought up by my buddy. I don't, actually it wasn't, but somebody said, well, does the impact fee mean a privilege fee would go away? No, it doesn't. They're representing costs of two different things. Privilege fees represent costs within the collection and conveyance system. The only component of our development impact fee would be a treatment cost. They're not duplicate or layered.
I apologize, Jason, it's probably rude to interview the question, but I just want to make sure I understand the difference. So the first example you gave, there was a program used there, right, building and units and whatnot on that example, right, the first one. This is just a blank lot out there right now?
It is I'm going to loosely use one of Jack Connor's terms. It is I'll say a pad-ready site. You already have the roadways, the sewer main, the water, any other public infrastructure is already there. Right. Somebody that likes that piece of property can come, put the building on, the site paving, all the utilities on the site.
And it doesn't matter what use is there? Yes. As far as the impact?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay, well,
you said with the impact fees, the privilege fee goes away?
No, it does not. They're representing two different costs.
We have paid for phase 2, paid one number of about $110,000. Phase 3, we paid that privilege fee, that's $144,000. That's it.
Let me go on to hypothetical 3, and I think with all of our discussion about affordable housing and a shortage of housing, I think this might be the one that is maybe the most important for our discussion here. But our parameters that I've put in, this is a residential, it is zoned R1C, and I believe that is single-family residential. We've got 48.75 acres, and we are planning a hypothetical 150 single-family residents on quarter-acre lots, average size 3,000 square feet. And if this is completely unrealistic by our home builders, I apologize. This is what I could do some numbers on and keep them somewhat straight in my head. So that's if there's a more realistic average lot size, average house size, development size for single-family residential that's more representative, I'm happy to update these parameters, and then we can very quickly take a new look at this. But this is what I have for this evening. So planning and zoning, we start with the planning and engineering fees. Those total for this roughly, we'll just say 49-acre site, $24,000, just over $24,000. Also mentioned that I have simulated this. This is located within wastewater treatment plant 1. Are you laughing at my numbers already? Sorry, I'm doing the best I can here. I'm not in your business.
Me?
No, CJ's laughing at me, so.
It is or is not in wastewater?
It is in wastewater treatment plant 1 service area, so it will have a fee component for the impact fee. If it were in treatment plant 2 service area, it would not. This one, I included it just for the conversation that it would have the wastewater component attached. So Georgetown Municipal, our engineering, review, hydraulic analysis, wouldn't be any pretreatment. I did include a hypothetical privilege fee so that would be, again, for improvements in the collection and conveyance system. So there would be a hypothetical privilege fee attached to this development. And then the biggest chunk of this comes on the connection fees, because you're talking about 150 3/4-inch meters and connections for water and sewer, both at $1,750 each. So you're looking at $262,500 in connection fees, and that $1,750 covers the cost of our connection and the cost of our meter, and then the cost of our sewer connection. That's not really a revenue source for Georgetown Municipal. It is simply the cost of our staff or a contractor going out and installing that part of the system, so the home builder can come back later and tie to that. So that is a significant portion of the cost, but that's very close to direct cost of what we're putting in those connections for. Move over to the public infrastructure, modeled off of a recently completed residential development. The roadway and stormwater, that you can see that those are roughly $2,848,000. And then the water and sewer infrastructure, we're at $596,000, $880,000. That is for the public infrastructure that's dedicated over to Georgetown Municipal. And so you get a total public infrastructure cost on this 49-acre development, 150 lots, quarter acre each, 3,000 square feet. You're at $4.9 million for public infrastructure to complete this development. I'll stop and take questions there. Okay, so we've got those three. Those are our three scenarios. I'm happy to work on additional ones if it will help further this conversation, or if you feel like I have missed something and I'm way off the mark, I'm welcome your feedback as well, so I can make these planning level numbers more accurate for council's use in your decision making. Let's see if I've got any other notes. I think that's it. Any other questions for me? Okay. Now our next slide, Ben, is going to walk you through what the same three projects, what you would add with the current draft of the calculation for the development impact fee.
Thank you, Chase.
All right, so for example one, we're going to use the office land use on the impact fee schedule. So those 66,000 square feet, $1.30 a square foot. So the non-utility component is about $86,000. In example one, on the utility side, it's about $31,000 per acre, and this is an 8-acre site, so about $246,000. So example one, the fees are about $332,000, bringing the total to about $3.9 million with impact fees. If you look at the bottom, that just shows what's going to each component. So example one, about $28,000 goes to fire, about $40,000 goes to municipal facilities, about $18,500 goes to police, and $246,000 goes to wastewater. When we look at example two, that's going to be an industrial use. So for that 50,000 square foot facility, the non-utility component is 61 cents per square foot, so about $30,500. It's a 10-acre site, but there is no utility component because that is in treatment plant 2 collection area. So for example, 2, the impact fees would be about just shy of $31,000, bringing the total to about $504,000, including the costs that Chase discussed. Example 3, the assumption here, those 150 units are 3,000 square feet each. So that's about $2,800 per unit for non-utility components, or $422,000 for all 150 units. On the utility side, that's about $2,500 a unit, so about $370,000 in utility impact fees, bringing the total impact fees to $792,000. Adding that to the $5 million in the public infrastructure costs brings it to about $5.8 million total for that project. So any questions related to the impact fees that would be paid on these three hypothetical developments.
What's the breakdown on the multifamily?
So I don't have a multifamily example, but it's really going to depend on the square footage of those units. So, if it's 1,000 square feet or less, it's going to be a lot different fee.
How do you propose to put an impact fee if you don't have those figures?
Well, I have the figures. They're in the fee schedules, but Chase provided three specific uses, and so we're showing what the impact fees would be for those developments.
You want me to pull your presentation?
Sure. Yeah, we can go back to that. Yeah.
So is my math right that on the single family 150 units instead of 92, it's about $5,200 a door impact fee? Yes.
That sounds about right.
That's what, I did the math too. That's what I came up with. On top of the 33,000 that's already, is that what you came up with, that's already there?
I didn't go that far. I'm slow.
Yeah, so for single family, because it's 3,000 square feet, that's going to be $2,800 a unit for non-utility and just shy of $2,500 for the single family, so about $5,200. And to your question related to multifamily, it's on the non-utility side. It's going to depend on the size of the unit. So if it's 1,000 square feet or less, it's $998 a unit plus, is it a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or 3-bedroom unit on the utility side, and is it within the wastewater treatment plant 1 collection area? But in theory, if these are all 750 square foot 1-bedroom units, then you're paying about $2,500 per multifamily unit.
Is there any other questions that you may have for Ben at this time?
So, Ben, just a quick clarification. So the numbers in the proposed fees of the 3-bedroom multi, that's total or per unit?
So everything shown on here is per unit. What we were showing on the other slide was that cumulative total.
So just for rough numbers, multi-house, multi-unit, 3-bedroom, it would add.
Yeah, so a 3-bedroom is going to be about $2,200 a unit for the utility component, and then assuming it's between 1,000 and 1,250 square feet, about $1,400 on the non-utility side per unit. Again, that's it's going to depend on the square footage of those units.
All right. Any other questions? Council? Yes.
Ben, do you have a budget number? I mean, what this would anticipate bringing in on an annual basis? To start off with.
Yeah, so let me go back. So at the start of each one of these, it shows a 10-year estimate. So we think that within the treatment plant 1 collection area, it would generate about $9.5 million over 10 years for that expansion. For police, it would generate about $3.4 million over 10 years for facilities and equipment. For municipal facilities, it would generate about $2.1 million. And for fire, just over $5 million, and that's for facilities, apparatus, and equipment.
Do you know what that aggregate was? I didn't add those up.
I remember $10 million I had written as a note. So I think that is a April number because we've got $9.5 million from the multifamily, but I've done enough math in public and I don't think I've messed up yet. So I don't want to ruin that by trying to add them all in my head. But at least $10 million on the utilities, and a few more million, for the non-utility components. But this will change. A lot of these components, they do use the incremental methodology. So if there's a recession and you don't grow as projected, you're not generating fee revenue, but you're also not having to expand facilities. You're not having to add additional apparatus. So it reduces that cost of infrastructure. On the flip side of that, if you grow faster than we're projecting, you generate more fee revenue, you build more, because most of these components are set up to maintain the existing level of service.
I have a question. All of these costs are upfront before ground is broken?
So for the non-utility side, likely collected at the building permit. On the utility side, if I'm my understanding correctly, it's when they come in to get that meter.
These numbers are based on current growth patterns. Is that where you're coming up with those? I mean, where are you coming up?
Yes. So for population, this ties in with the comp plan. So assumes a 2% annual population increase. On the non-residential side, it looks at 2020 to 2023 average permits. So assuming that you would grow in a similar fashion on the non-residential side as you have recently.
This is another hypothetical, because it's a little bit of what we have to balance when we make a decision about this. Do we know the impact of impact fees? Because we know that a lot of the costs are passed on to the developer, and therefore passed on in a residential buy, passed on to the person buying the home. Do we have any kind of data or any kind of information to say what impact it has on whether or not development goes down because of impact fees, or whether or not housing becomes a lot less affordable and therefore people are not moving into Scott County, Georgetown, which would impact other fees that are collected? So I think the vision of how all of these things come together and impact is more than just this.
Right. So for a single family unit, it's a little easier to talk about that, because generally that single family unit is going to have a mortgage. And so we're talking about, an additional $5,200, for that mortgage. So we could, amortize that and say, it's going to be X dollars, per month that it increases the fee. But, you've seen the iterations of this, and, we keep sharpening the pencil and, discussing with staff, okay, what's really needed. And so we have, really, pulled out, a lot of the components that, we weren't 100% sure of, to make sure that, at least, in a community that is, interested in impact fees, that, this first go around, we really focus on, the highest needs. And, assuming that you adopt these, in, 3 to 5 years when you would update this, we'd go back and look at it. And, one of the first questions, any impact fee consultant's going to ask you is, well, what isn't working with your impact fee program? Mm-hmm. And then what is working? And so it may be that, you say, hey, we really focused on these types of improvements in, our first go round, but now we've noticed that we really need something else. And so, you could change up the components, in each update cycle, but really focus on, those high level growth related needs. There have been studies. They were post-recession, looking at Florida communities that had impact fees, and it was comparing communities that either, basically set their impact fees to zero, and communities that did not reduce theirs. And, there wasn't a positive correlation with the reduction in impact fees and additional growth. And, one signal of an impact fee is that, that that governing body will make infrastructure improvements to that community. So there's not going to be a declining level of service because when we look at these Florida communities, they're getting rid of their school impact fees, they're getting rid of their road impact fees, and those are things that really affect a community. These are not components that we're including in this study, but those are generally high dollar fees. And when you looked at that comparison of who reduced their fees or got rid of them, they didn't see an increase in growth. And single family units, they don't necessarily act like all the other land uses because there's a reason someone wants to buy a single family home in a community. And it's because they want to live there for certain quality of life reasons or access to amenities. So they don't act in the same way that a multifamily unit or a non-residential development would. So the impact fees don't necessarily impact the single family units in the same manner. It's hard to compare Georgetown to that because many communities in Florida, Arizona, South Carolina, they have impact fees. So if one community decides, hey, we're going to get rid of our impact fees, or we're going to increase our impact fees, I guess that's a better example, it's not necessarily going to drive development elsewhere because everyone else has those impact fees. Here, your neighbors don't. And so could it drive development, outside of your city limits? Yes, it definitely could. And, that's, outside of our scope to understand, what that would do. But at least on the single family side, if you're looking to live in Georgetown, you're likely not going to say, hey, I want to build a house, 20, 30 miles away. So that's, it's going to act a little differently. The non-residential side, that one's, harder to predict.
I might have a little information on that to share. I don't know if you want to hear it now or not, but whenever it's appropriate, I'd be glad to share my comments.
Okay, any other questions at this time? Yeah, absolutely.
You want me to come to the mic or can I do it from here?
If you can talk loud or...
I'll try to talk loud. I think when you're looking, my name's Todd Johnson, I'm with the Building Industry Association. I'm going to kind of respectfully disagree with some of the things that our visitor here said. I think what the reality is that we have in our market right now is that we have an affordability and availability of housing kind of crisis going on. Every community, including Georgetown, is underbuilt. And if you look at Georgetown, and I pulled these numbers from the Board of Realtors this week, the median price of a new home in Scott County is $379,000. And that takes an income of about $120,000 a year to be able to afford that. Household income of about $120,000 a year to afford that house. The latest data that I could find on Scott County household income showed that the average household income here is about $80,000, maybe a little bit more. So you've got about probably 65 to 70% of your citizens, your households in your community that can't afford the average price of the new home in your community now. And you're talking about adding on another $5,200 per house in this example, further driving the affordability possibility further out of reach for more people. Our National Association did a study that was released back in 2020, at March of 2025, looking at our MSA. And it's historically been the same every year they've done it. For every $1,000 that you raise the price of a home, you're in this MSA, you're knocking almost 300 people out of the ability to afford it. So what you're doing by adding another $5,200 to the price of a home, or adding another $3,000 or $4,000 to the price of an apartment unit, is you're forcing people into rental more longer than they would be able to buy a house. Or you're making them face the decision, are they going to have to move out of this community? And they're doing it now. We represent builders throughout this entire region. And I can tell you, you have Scott County builders right now that are building houses in Franklin County, in Frankfurt, for your citizens because they can't afford here, that are working at Toyota and other places in Scott County. Frankfurt is becoming that bedroom community for Scott County because that's where they're able to drive and afford a house.
So
So
clarification,
that is
for
going
every
on in the
$1,000,
market right now.
for every $1,000,
For every $1,000 increase, you're knocking probably around 300 families out of the ability to afford a
Okay.
house. So 3 times 5 in this case.
If I can ask a question. So why, in your opinion, is Scott County so high?
Scott County is not high compared to the region. Scott County is pretty much on plane with every other community in central Kentucky right now. Because,
Is that Franklin County?
I'm sorry?
Is that Franklin County?
Franklin County is lower, mainly because you got lower regulatory burden there, you have lower land costs there.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask you a question while you're sitting back there. Let's say, for example, sitting right next to you, Ball Homes. They just are about to open a new project. What determines what size houses are going to be put in there?
The market, what they build, what they think they can sell in their market.
$350,000.
Well, they would probably like to build a $200,000 house or a $180,000 house, but it's cost prohibitive to do that. You cannot do that to stay in business. So the builders aren't building $400,000 houses because they don't build $400,000 houses. They're building for what the market demand is, and so that they can make a profit to stay in business.
I just think, I can speak
Hold on,
for us
okay.
Hold
Hold on, wait just a minute. Okay, first of all, let's kind of keep a little order here. Yes,
We
go
moved
ahead.
into item 7, so
Yeah.
if we're fully in comments, I'm going to bring the microphone up here.
Yep, okay. All right, so, I'm glad we're having discussion, so let's let you come up to the microphone, it'll be a lot easier. There you go. So we don't have a shouting match across the room here.
Yeah, no, that's fine. All good.
And I got to take my whistle out and blow it so make everybody keep right in line.
You yelled at me before, no big deal.
Yes, sir.
But on the follow-up, if the market is increasing and we're pushing people out, why doesn't the builders come in and build the lesser homes at the $180,000, $200,000 that people can afford?
I'll let Buddy answer that since he's the actual home builder.
Well, I don't know all the answers. I do know that I can speak for what's happened with Ball Homes. And we just had this discussion maybe a month ago where I was up in front of y'all, and a lot of the comments we received was, why are you building these smaller homes? Why are you jamming homes in trying to, we have a whole product line that has been developed over the past 10 years called The Trend, which attempts to give people a nice, livable home, but make use of the land and keep the cost down, and those are the ones you're seeing. And I realize what that cost is. We talked about this last year, and I get that, but that is affordable housing right now in Lexington. And this MSA, we're probably better than most places in the country. So I do get that. I almost wonder sometimes if we find somewhere where we can get through all the regulatory hurdles that are there from people not wanting you to jam stuff and find some way to build something that could be considered more starter now. But it's incredibly hard from a cost perspective and to get anything approved to do that. So we do our best, and we really are doing our best. And when you see that, the last development we're talking about, all those homes, and I remember talking to you all about it. I know it's daunting, you see it, but affordability, those people are, getting that house that starts at somewhere in the 200s, and then they can choose to maybe want they still want a nice kitchen. They still want something on the floor in there nice, and they, can make that happen. And so they do make those choices, and it has brought it up, higher, and so has land costs. So we do try to do that. We have a whole line that does that. And I just also want to say, I guess, that it's inevitable that if you add the number, I just did a quick calculation back there, so don't hold me to this, but I saw 4.9 million on the one example, and then about 800,000. That's about 19%, 17, 18%. When you talk about a margin for somebody doing business, nobody can suck that up. No builder or nobody can just suck that up. So you have to know and understand that you're not thinking poorly that that's going to be passed on.
I mean, the market, not just even a single, but the market will pass that on. And it will go into that mortgage, and they'll pay $30,000 over the life of their home to pay for the $5,000 for the impact fees. And it'll be just a single bit of your citizens probably paying things that are not, I mean, there's just a lot that I see with that. And so I think you're at least thinking properly that, that's where it's going to probably land. The market will probably make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, like again, this is a good opportunity for council to make some comments and have discussion, because we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to come to the table and make themselves known. So at this time, I'm going to move on. Yes, question. Come on up, please.
So so these costs, like for fire and police and wastewater. So I would just ask, what would be an alternative suggestion to pay for them? Like, how should the community pay for the infrastructure that supports the houses and the?
You go ahead. I don't want to touch this.
If I knew the answer to that, I would have probably getting paid a whole lot of money and stepped off a plane to be here. I don't know the answer to that. But one thing that I think is evident in this conversation that I haven't heard is the revenue side of things. So we've talked about the development costs, the infrastructure through Chase's, and Chase, I think he did a great job, through the examples that he did on the development cost. The one thing we haven't talked about is if Jack and his guys at the industrial board keep bringing good jobs here, and this community has a legacy of bringing great jobs and economic growth and development here, you've got revenue through occupational tax and other tax bases that pay for your services. It doesn't have to be a tax just on new homes and new development to pay for this. It's a community-wide service. The sewer is a community-wide system. If you live in an older neighborhood and your trunk line goes south and you have to replace a mile of that, you don't put a fee just on those people who are dumping into that sewer line. It goes across the system. And so I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but one thing I see is void here is the revenue side of things, where you're coming in from your tax base and keeping growing your economy and jobs should help offset and pay for those community services. That's the best answer I got. Probably not a good one.
I have one.
All right, come. Yeah.
So kind of what gave a lot of momentum to this discussion of impact fees. They've been talked about for years, but the water rate increase is kind of what brought the momentum, I think, recently. So it's a little concerning that, and so it almost seems like we should just start with wastewater and the fire and the police and the others. Maybe that's through taxes or that comes later. So it's a little concerning that we're backing off of the water part of it. And really the water is a very numerical. It almost makes sense for water. Like the developer, the people living in the houses, if you can pay these impact fees up front, it's sort of like instead of building your own septic system or own wastewater plant, you're just buying, your down at the wastewater treatment plant 1. And then if that could somehow decrease the water rate that the residents of the houses pay, because right now the residents of the houses are paying through their water rate. So if we could somehow reduce the water rate and replace it with these impact fees, that might make some sense and be sellable in some way.
I had somebody in the back had a question. Come on up.
Hello. Thank you all for being here and taking your time tonight to talk with all of us. My name is John Traylor. A lot of you all know me. I'm a lifelong resident of Georgetown. I go 5 generations deep, so I'm not going anywhere. You can't get rid of me. But I just wanted to speak a little bit on behalf of the industrial side. I know you had a question earlier, and I want to speak to that directly. And you mentioned revenue, and I want to speak to that directly too. So I am the chairman of the Scott County Industrial Forum. What that is any member of any business in Scott County that does industrial work can join our unit, and we work on problems together. There's a lot of things that we have done that you can drive through the city and see that directly came from the Industrial Forum. One of them I can mention is right there by VUTEC, that turn signal, that turning lane, that directly came from a meeting that we had and the work that Kim and Jack Connor did on that. So I just want to speak of it from an industrial side and from the 20-plus members we have here from the Industrial Forum that do pay the lion's share of the revenue to the city. We do generate a vast majority of revenue for this city. And to answer your question, I can answer that directly. I'm with Commonwealth Tool and Machine. Some of you all may know that. I'd welcome you all to come visit our facility anytime. It's right behind the wastewater plant out there across from Toyota. We've been there 4 years. I was the person that was there involved in the entire process of building it, so I was with everything. We built 126,000 square feet building there. We moved from Stamping Ground that we had been for years, great community, hated to leave Stamping Ground, but we needed more space. When I look at the numbers that were given in the previous meeting at 67 cents a square foot, I'm glad to see the numbers have gone to 61 cents a square foot in this meeting, but 61 cents a square foot would have meant day one we would have had to have written a check for $76,000 just to build the building on top of all the other development of the multi-millions of dollars it took to build this building. The management of Commonwealth would have never built the building in Georgetown. We would have stayed in Stamping Ground. It was already a big decision for us to go from a 0.5% tax to 1% tax, not to mention the other taxes in the city. So to answer your question, 50 people that now are on your tax base would not be on your tax base. I can answer that directly. And that's what I want to speak to, because that's what worries me and what I fear. I know many of you all were here back in the early 80s when Clark Equipment left, and Clark Equipment was the Toyota of the day. I don't know how many employees they had. I think probably a couple thousand or something, maybe at most. But that was the basis of Georgetown. And when they left, immediately housing went probably, I'm estimating at 30% drop immediately. So that's what worries me. If I know growth is a scary thing and it's an awful thing. When I drove here across town today in traffic at 5 o'clock, I don't want growth. But when my kid was younger and couldn't breathe at 3 o'clock in the morning, or my grandmother's having a heart attack and I needed an ambulance, I didn't need to hear on the other end of that line, we'll pick you up on Tuesday. That's what growth gives you. If you don't have growth, that's what worries me, because you can use Detroit as a great example. They didn't institute an impact fee and directly get the mass exodus, but the union cost for the employees there sent all those good-paying jobs down south to people like us, which is great. But Detroit went through an awful time. They went to 3 men on a fire truck, laying firefighters off, closing fire stations, closing police departments, crime crazy, bulldozing entire neighborhoods, and that's what worries me. That's what scares me with this. I know this impact fee is going to impact not only industrial, but it will. I feel like it'll impact housing, because if somebody sees another $10,000 on a house, it's already high. I don't know how young people can buy a house now with the $300,000 that it is. So I just wanted to kind of answer that question that you had directly, speak to the revenue side of it, and give a personal example that I know we wouldn't be here and you wouldn't have 50 people. These are 50 people that are not entry-level high school students. These are skilled trades, making great wages, contributing to this community. So,
thank you, Mr. Trader.
Thank you all for your time.
All right, somebody else, Mr. Smith, you want to come up? Then, Counselor, I'll get you next, okay?
My name is Mark Smith. I've developed a little bit of property in Scott County. And basically, Todd, on your question of the cost of house per lot, it's the cost of the lot. You can't pay $60,000, $70,000, the average lot cost. And then the cost of building a house is $200 a square foot, basically, for a decent house now. So if you're building a 1,000 square foot house, it's $200,000. You put on a $70,000 lot. Nobody's going to put a 1,000 square foot house on a $70,000 lot per se. You've got in Showalter, what used to be $120,000, $130,000 10, 12 years ago is now $185,000 to $250,000 in Showalter. My concern, too, is whatever you do today is going to, everybody wants to say affordable housing, and there is no such thing anymore. It's what the mayor says, what he can afford, or what I can afford, or what you can afford. That's what affordable is. But the only affordable housing across the board is government housing or government-assisted housing, government, who pays for it. So there's no such thing. But what you do today is going to directly impact the cost of everyone. We do a lot of apartments now, and I have some more land we can build future apartments on. I'm going to share some actual costs with you of some apartments we built within the last 2 years. It cost a 900 square foot apartment cost us $180,000 per unit, exclusive of land. That's just what it costs to build the unit. And so if you built, and of 16 units that I built, in this last, section, I paid $90,000 in fees to Georgetown Municipal, Planning and Zoning, Building Inspection Office for 16 units. Now, if you all enact what you have, the proposal in front of you, to those additional 2-bedroom units, my fees will go from $90,000 for the next 16 to $120,000, which represents 33%. But let me share with you what else the property owners experience, landlords, what management companies, whatever you want to call it. In the last 60 days, and I'm sure that all the other commercial developers, property owners can attest, commercial insurance has gone up 33% for this coming year. Solid waste removal has gone up 24% in this last year. Not counting new fees, taxes, etc. The average, and that's not mine, but a new apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, leases in Georgetown, Scott County for $1,400 to $1,600 per month. Mine don't, rent for that. Okay, to me that's almost unconscionable. But if I'm required to pay $180,000 per unit, and land costs, what are land costs for apartments? $20,000 a door. If you bought 2 acres that you can build 48 apartments on, you're going to pay $960,000 for 2 acres. Now put your fees on that. Raise those costs and fees 33%. The people that are now charging the bigger complexes, $1,400 to $1,600 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. They're charging $995 for a 500 square foot, 1-bath studio. A 1-bedroom, $1,150. Now think about it. These are today dollars, folks. And so I was looking at, if David was going to build over the next 10 years, another 1 million square feet, it would cost him $2 million just up front. When you talk about if you go to a new area to expand sewer, we went to a new area. We didn't have sewer. We had to build a whole sewer company out in the county for Mallard Point. We didn't have water out there. I had to lay a 12-inch line from Triport Road up US 25. To serve that at a cost 40 years ago of $1 million. What would that be today? What would that be on that chart? But what I'm saying is the cost today is not just you. It's not just this cost. Okay? And I agree. I think we need to have the jobs. Those are the dollars that come in here. And a lot of those people are leaving us dollars and they're going somewhere else. So I think it's important, the jobs, what we had, what was turned down. I think that was a great loss for this community. But these are something to still look at. But I think, what you do is so very important, and it affects everyone. So whatever you do, please do judiciously. And I thank you for your time.
Counselor, you want to come up?
Thank you. I'm Richard Murphy. I'm a lawyer who does land development. I work with Anderson Communities that did Amerson here. I've also worked with Urban Group. Just want to make a few remarks on this. Any fee like this, of course, gets passed on to the homeowner or the buyer. It's hard right now in this atmosphere of rising prices with with possible inflation, interest rates fluctuating, tariffs and rumors of tariffs and labor shortages and product shortages, it's very hard for the builders to keep the price down to any degree. This just adds on to it and sort of acts like a tax on the homeowners. And many of the people coming in are people who already live here, just moving to a different house, and will be paying that. One other thing is the physical infrastructure. In a new subdivision, all the infrastructure is new. There's not going to be a need for extensive repairs for 20 years or so. Meanwhile, the new residents are paying property taxes. Those property taxes aren't needed to fix up things in their neighborhood. They go to fix up things in older parts of the neighborhood. We have a concern about that. I also, as a lawyer, have a concern about the legality of it. I guess I expressed this at the last meeting, but I was doing some checking on this, and generally there has to be a statute allowing a city to do certain things, or else it has to have home rule powers to do it. There's no express statute in Kentucky allowing impact fees. In the year 2005, there was a bill introduced in the legislature which expressly allowed impact fees and outlined exactly how you could do them and how cities could charge for this or not charge for that. Unfortunately, that statute did not pass, did not get out of the legislature. There may have been one introduced in 2000 as well. That was going to amend KRS 100. Home rule doesn't do it because home rule cannot be used where the legislature has entered the field and legislated, which is KRS 100. So it's going to take an amendment to KRS 100 to do that. I just haven't heard any discussion on this, on what the legality is. So just wanted to, it's a tough decision you're making, and appreciate your allowing me to make some remarks to you on that. Thank you.
Okay. Chase, you want to come up?
Thank you, Mayor. If I could just revisit Mr. Holman's comment. Mr. Holman is a concerned citizen and a concerned ratepayer, so I appreciate him being here, asking questions, offering ideas. I did want to mention, just as he was speaking, he brings up a good point. Could a development impact fee for wastewater allow us to go back and reduce our wastewater rates? And I believe the answer to that is no. I'm sorry if that's not a good answer that you want to hear, but we will go out and we will finance the wastewater plant 1 upgrade and expansion. Our bond will be based on our rate structure. I do not believe financial institutions, and you have some representatives in the room, you can ask them, I do not believe they will base that borrowing on the volatility of when we may or may not receive an impact fee. I think it's a good idea. I would be, based on what I've learned about this future bond issuance that we will do, I think that it is 100% based on our rate structure, not other potential revenue streams. So that's my best take.
Yeah,
so
you probably have to redo the whole rates. It'd be a pretty major redo financial.
And our rates right now are structured as we just looked at a few months ago when I presented to council. We are seeing that our rate structure is performing as intended and will be able to pay the level of debt service required for the project. So,
all right. Yes, sir. Come on up.
So I'm Doug Charles, and I'm a property developer, and I developed a lot of stuff in Scott County, Jessamine County, Madison County, some different places in Tennessee, some different things. So I just wanted to say I know this is a complex issue, and how you raise taxes and how you foot the bills, and every community's dealing with that. And you know, I don't have the answers or the silver bullet. I don't know if anybody does. But what I will say for sure is that the pressures, you know, what we do is a very capital intensive business, and it's high risk business. You know, it's all great when everybody talks about when housings are selling and stuff. Nobody talks about when the recession hits and now you're stuck. You're sitting there and you're paying, you know, double digit interest rates, and there's no lot selling. So, and you have to kind of be a forecaster in the future. So a couple of concerns I have is that, I sell to boutique builders, local builders here. I sell to regional builders. I sell to national builders. This whole thing is really a math equation, and it varies from different communities. A lot in, the pressures of a footage of lot, of 60-foot lot, whether it's a 60-foot lot or a 70-foot lot or an 80-foot lot or a 100-foot lot. That foot of pipe and that foot of curb and that asphalt tonnage and it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what's on top of it. If it's a $250,000 house or $1 million house, it costs the same. No one in here that has land today is going to sell it today for what they sold it for 6 years ago. So, to give you some context, just up here at Oxford Road 4 years ago, I sold lots in the mid-50s for a 60-foot range, for a mid-50,000 for a 60-foot range. It cost us, there's not a lot of secrets in this stuff. Everybody works on a certain margin that you should be entitled to for the risk that you take. We're getting pressures from interest rates, regulatories. We deal with local, county, state, federal. It's coming from all directions. But the same lot, 60-foot lot that I was able to sell and make the same margin, no more profit margin, the same lot 4 years ago I was selling for $55,000. It's now selling for $80,000. Why is that? Because interest rates have gone up, pipe's gone up, gravel's gone up, concrete's gone up, labor's gone up. All that stuff goes on. And so we have to, and it pass it on. And the builders can, if they pay $80,000 for a house, they've got to sell a house to make their numbers work, in the $400,000 range. It's a percentage of the deal. So, I'm not here to give an economics lesson on building, but what I am here to say is that every impact, every one of these fees, and it's just little things, it's things that Scott County has been great to me and been welcoming to me, and all the people I've worked with have been honorable and great. Chase and his team have been great. All the folks down at Planning and Zoning, and you all have been wonderful. But there's a reason why that 35% of the American public now rent, and that number is climbing. And home ownership, if you don't think it impacts, it was a great question, Ms. Hamrick, that you brought up. There's impact fee, and then there's impact of the impact fee, and all these fees may seem minuscule at the time, but it's not just the $5,500 a lot, because whether that capital is borrowed for that or whether it's taken out of an investment for that, until you've got to pay that up front. And you've got to sit there and, you start these developments today, you may not get them finished for 3 years, the time you go through all the municipalities and the engineering and all the different nuances you have to go through. And then I have another concern is that from a developing standpoint, we've gone in here and invested millions and millions of dollars in this community and created jobs and subcontractors and all the above. But we get contracts from people a year, 2 years, and 3 years out, because builders, they take lots down in certain segments. I'm already under contract on lots at a certain price that I've already set. How does that foot? You just say, well, sorry, you just got to pay it, and you're already under contract on stuff that's already in the pipeline, so you're making decisions for today and the future, and these things come out of clear. All these things have impact, and that's all that I wanted to share with you, because it's the lot prices in Georgetown are pretty high relative. They're $20,000 higher than they are in Madison County. There's a lot of reasons for that. They're $30,000 higher than they are in Clark County. You can't find hardy land in Lexington, as we all know. But anyways, I appreciate your all's time.
Thank you. All right. If there's nobody else from the gallery here, yes, sir, Mr. May.
I'm C.J. May. When I came here today, I said, I'm not going to talk. Jake's going to talk. But now I couldn't wait to talk, okay? And it's hard to follow behind Doug Charles, I got to tell you.
Yeah.
This guy's good. But, no, I first came to Georgetown at the direction of Lowe's, and we developed the Lowe's and the Kohl's and the Buffalo Wild Wings and so forth. We were concentrated on the north side of Georgetown, And I worked with Karen when she was mayor. You probably remember that. And Kim when he was at Toyota. And we tried to develop a 200-acre site where the new interchange is. We got the interchange justification study done through the federal government. We, along the way, the recession hit, the 2008 recession, and all of our tenants went away. We had Target and a whole bunch of tenants. And when they left, we had no way of paying for that. So we got delayed. And during that delay, the landowner wouldn't renew our option, so we lost $1,200,000 on that project. And we never bought the land. So I want to just mention the risk associated with these deals. Now, every deal has a certain type of risk, but the risk can fall in the site development work, which you could have some extraordinary site costs, rock. You could have environmental issues. You could have run into Indiana bats. We deal with them sometimes. We deal with some archaeological. We deal with drainage and so forth. So our most recent development has been in Parkview Medical Center. But back to Lowe's, when I came here, and I worked with Lowe's for years, about 25 years. We did Lowe's stores all over the country. But what I learned from them was that the market research is where you got to start this whole thing. So any of these stores that want to come in to this community or any community is going to look at the data. There's tremendous amounts of data available. And they're going to determine what their trade area is and what's inside that trade area and how much of that trade area, the sales in home improvement, how much of that is going to be their market share. And that's going to be their top line sales. And they're going to be able to pay a percentage of that in rent, say 6% or something. And so when we do a pro forma, we always do the income side first. We say, well, what can we get? And we look at the market research. What can we get rent-wise? And then we say, how much is that going to support? How much rent cost will that support? Then we go over and work with our engineers and contractors to put the cost together. And if it doesn't balance, then the project's just not going to work. And what I've found in some communities, and you guys, I don't know of any times other than back when you were mayor, Karen, that we dealt with a TIF project. That's another tool in your toolbox. If you want to get costs down, I would urge you to look at TIFs, industrial revenue bonds. They go, well, golly, what's this going to do to the schools? We can show you where it helps the schools. And people are doing them everywhere. They're all over northern Kentucky. These are tools to help us get our costs down so that we can get our income down. It's super important. The Parkview deal, of course, we were rushed some because of the sewer issue. We were the last ones in to get capacity, and because it was an essential service with the medical building, and Aldi's basically uses the equivalent of one house because they don't have a fresh produce department. It's all prepackaged when it comes in and so forth. So we were able to get in just in time to get those two things done. But the tenants were ready. So we got to be ready when they're ready. So we have now purchased 160 acres of industrial property on the north side of Georgetown, right in the curve of cherry blossom. We think we can get over 2 million, maybe 2.5 million square feet on there. We paid $6 million cash for that 2.5 years ago. And for 2.5 years, we've been working through the federal government with the Corps of Engineers and all those folks to try to get through all their scrutiny. And we're there with them. We're ready to, and we're on the schedule to come to the Planning Commission. And we want to have it shovel ready so if a big industry wants to come in, then we'll be able to accommodate them. They don't want to wait for 2.5 years. They want to say, well, I need this thing within a year. So we're hoping to be able to provide that for them. So we're able to be patient, but we are waiting for the tenants to come in. Now, in order for that to happen, our cost and income have to balance. And it's not easy, I can tell you. We deal with cost in various ways. We look on the income side. We got to say, okay, not only what is the quantity, but what is the quality of the income. And what by that I mean, if we're going to rent to somebody, we're going to spend that kind of money. We got to know that we're going to collect our rent. Okay, we don't want to just rent to anybody that wants to come around, and then suddenly they move out. So there's risk everywhere that we deal with. And today I'll give you one example, and then I'll quit talking. We got a little sandwich shop that wants to be out at Parkview, 1,600 square feet. We did the numbers, and we have to charge them, not counting the CAM taxes, common area maintenance taxes, and insurance. We had to charge them $47 a square foot, which is $80,000 a year. Okay? For them to be able to pay $80,000 a year, they've got to do $1,200,000 in sales. And I asked them, can you do that? And they go, we don't know if we can or not. I said, well, this is probably not a good deal for either one of us. Because if you can't pay the rent, then we don't want to spend this money. So the budget is critical. And I've never seen it like it is today. I mean, labor prices are up, material prices are up, interest rates are up, and, you know, just like my predecessor said, we got to pass this along, this cost, or we do nothing. So we've been mowing that grass out there at Parkview. It looks pretty good, you know, but there's not going to be any buildings there until we get our numbers to work. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Council. Again, thank you all for coming. And at this time now, Council, here's an opportunity for you to have some comments. So I'll start with you down there, Mr. Stone, since I'm looking at you.
I'm good, sir.
Okay. Ms. Mitchell.
I really appreciate all the different perspectives. Thank you. I've learned a lot. And there's a whole lot that will go into making this decision. And the participation from you all who came today is very important. And we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Hampton.
Thanks, Mayor. I think, first of all, just want to thank everyone for their work in putting all this information together. It's been very beneficial for me, and I believe the rest of the council. We need to make a decision rather fast on this, what we're going to do. From the perspective of development, industrial development, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, new development coming in, this is probably already scaring them away just by us thinking about this.
We've had conversations with both those looking as well as those who want to expand, and they see it as a disincentive.
Yes. So I think we need to, do this as soon as possible so that we can put this to bed one way or the other. I just made some notes. I'm just going to go ahead and just tell you what my thoughts are. We can't impose an impact fee at the cost of jeopardizing potential growth and revenue in the future. If we're looking for ways to create revenue, and if we chase that out, guess what? Your revenue's not growing, but the basic economics is with revenue not growing, your expenses are still going to grow. You're going to have those expenses there no matter what. And guess what? If we don't have the revenue to cover those increasing expenses, what's going to happen? Your taxes are going to increase. Do we want to do that? No. So I think we need to really pay attention to this. I know we're looking for ways to create revenue. I just believe this would be contrary to what our ultimate goal is. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brent.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out and giving all the information that you have. I've learned a lot to take in. It's really it's a tough decision, but thank you all for coming out.
Ms. Hambrick.
I think that there's a perception when people throw opinions around that developers are just taking advantage of citizens with costs. I think it's important for everybody to listen carefully to the people who are in the business to see what the actual costs are. There's also a lot of pressure in the community for quality of life, capital projects, that when you have a tight budget, it's very difficult to be able to do the things that people think ought to be done. And so we're a bit caught when we make decisions like this. I think that it takes deep listening. I think we've had some of that tonight. I think that there's a lot of chatter on social media that needs correction when people listen to actual facts of matters rather than just throwing opinions out there. It's detrimental to decision making, and it complicates everything. And so I have great appreciation for people who've come and given learned opinions about these things. I'm very concerned about affordable housing, and I realize that that's a strange term anymore because really, what is it? So when I measure, even over 30 years, the increase in costs that might be made, it's a significant decision to impose something that's greater. That being said, there are a lot of things that the city has a need of, that impact fees are one way that could help address some of those. But the conversation tonight, I hope a wider audience will listen to, because it seems very easy to just say, well, why aren't we just, we have all this growth, and why don't we just slap on impact fees, and that would take care of it? Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily when you take a deeper dive into it. So I think listening is the key, and evaluating things as deeply as possible. So thank you for coming, and thank you for your insight.
Mr. Minke.
Thank you, Mayor. Decisions aren't made in a vacuum. And we need to make sure that we're utilizing all of our experiences as we review and digest the information that's there. I've spent my entire career in one way or another doing economic development. And John, I think you did a great job of summarizing existing business, and CJ and the housing folks, have done a really nice job explaining it's a business decision, folks. And basically there's a lot of folks that want to live here because we have a really great community, a lot of resources. But the reason we have that is because business, as John said earlier, basically provides the majority of the revenue for us to have all the great things that we have here. When I looked at sites, even starting to look at a site to locate, you look at the data online before you even talk to a community, and you either get on the list or you're not on the list. And if it doesn't make sense from a business perspective, as CJ mentioned, you got to balance. And so if you don't even get on the list, then you don't even have an opportunity. We have got to have, because as Greg mentioned earlier, costs continue to go up. We have some of the lowest tax rates here in this community. We're in a prime spot. But if we don't maintain and grow the existing businesses that we have here, if we don't have smart, good growth to help offset the costs of increasing needs in the community, the essentials in the community for public safety, quality of life, those things that we all want, I believe these fees, after looking at this, after asking for additional data to understand fully existing costs and then adding on these additional costs, what does that do to the calculus? And I'm to the point at this point, I don't think this is a good move for Georgetown. You can't do it in a vacuum because the trickle-down unintended consequences that will happen. And so, at this point, I really appreciate the reduction and looking and sharpening the pencil and things like that, but it's got to get a lot sharper so that it makes sense from a business perspective. And I'll just lay it out there. That's where I am at this point. It just does not make sense. And I'm here. The only reason I'm doing what I'm doing in this community is for the future. To be able to have a place where kids can stay here, have the opportunities, and enjoy this area. My kids didn't. And I'm sorry for that. But if others could, because they have the opportunities that they're looking for, then that's what I'm here for. So that's where I am.
Thank you. Ms. Sames.
Thank you all for your comments. I know most of you all that are in the room, and so I appreciate you coming up to the mic and actually giving us feedback and comments on it. Impact fees, that's substantial. On some of these numbers are substantial, but we've got to figure out something that we're going to, because the same things that's affecting all of you all are affecting us. We need growth is caused a threat. Every single one of our department heads presented us a presentation that said growth was the number one threat to their departments and number one threat to Georgetown as a whole. That we can't keep up. We're behind. We can't keep up. So the revenues are coming in today are not allowing us to keep up and do what we need to do. So we got to figure out something. What that magic bullet is, I'm not sure what it is. Do we do partial impact fees? Do we raise other taxes? Do we take a look and cut back the budget? But there's not much to cut back on the budget. It always has been mostly personnel. And the personnel cost, just like some of you all said, keeps going up and up and up. And so anybody that has anything to do with business, whether it's small business like mine or a big business like some of your all, these cost factors right now are killing all of us. But looking at the city too is going to have to handle it. How do we do it? I don't know. But I really appreciate you all coming up and talking and having a conversation with us. I appreciate that very much. So.
Thank you, Ms. Sames. Next, Mr. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. My mother, she's no longer with us, but she was a builder and developer, mainly in the 80s and 90s. I know a lot of you guys remember. I could imagine today what she would probably think about impact fees. But still, I did want to come into this with an open mind. We've had a lot of discussion, a lot of give and take. Georgetown is growing, as everyone knows. Holden and I met a few days ago, and I shared with him a stat that I saw the other day on 60 Minutes or something like that. Bentonville, Arkansas, the median price of their homes right now, or just a few weeks ago, was $489. So that's Arkansas. Yeah, it's Walmart land. It's Arkansas. We're Georgetown. We've got Toyota. We've got 64 and 75 affordable housing. I don't know if we're really ever going to see that again. If we're already at 370, and we've got a city in Arkansas over pushing 500. So I don't know necessarily how much an impact fee would impact affordable housing. Probably wouldn't that much, but as far as considering we don't know if we actually have affordable housing anymore. But one thing is for sure, there are solutions out there to what we're dealing with our growth. I'm not so sure this is one of those solutions. But that being said, I think we would all welcome ideas from you all as well not just tonight, but other ideas. Mr. made the TIF idea. That was a really good idea. Other different ideas that you guys could give us to help shape our community and make it more cost effective for all of us would be appreciated.
The tools in your toolbox.
Okay.
That's what you got to look at.
Sounds good.
And work on the income side like we do first. I think you need to be looking at the income side of these deals.
All right.
Jay can show you some really impressive numbers on this industrial project. Some tax revenue.
We thought impact fees was going to be in the toolbox.
What's that?
We thought impact fees might be in that toolbox.
All right.
They're down at the bottom there.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you again. And again, thank you all for being here tonight. Again, and thank you, council, for your input. That was the intent of this, to listen to everybody on both sides of the spectrum, and we can go from there. So, with no further business, thank you all again. This meeting is adjourned.